Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of how shifting your mindset will shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am so excited for today's conversation. I am joined by Madeline Weiss, and she is a Harvard-trained psychotherapist, a mindset expert, and a board-certified executive career and life coach. She's also a best-selling author of the book, Getting to Great, a 5-step strategy for work and life, and a children's workbook, What's Your Story? And I am so excited to delve down her story. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
Me as well. So who would you say Madeline is at the core?
Who is at the core?
Yeah, who are you at the core?
Oh, who am I? I'm too humble to answer that. I was going to say something amazing about myself. I will say I didn't always feel that way about myself. But somehow along the way, and it's been a long, long way, I kind of figured out how to be me in the world in a way that I feel pretty good about. And if I could put that in a bottle, because I think who doesn't want that, right? And, if you could put it in a bottle and people could buy it for 25 cents or whatever it is, that would be awesome. But that's not how it goes. There's a lot of trips and falls and surprises and adventure and the whole 9 yards that goes into getting from there to here.
I'm curious what the amazing things you were going to say about yourself.
Well, it's embarrassing, to say these nice things about yourself.
Why?
I don't know. The word that popped into my head was goodness. And probably that is because 2 people actually said that to me a day apart. One about an hour ago. But that's something you do. Your goodness is so, you know how they say so I was a soccer mom, and when my son, who's all grown up now, when he was younger, you know how I don't know if they still do, but they would give out trophies for nothing. And the kids aren't dumb. They know they did nothing. And so the idea that affirmations are going to develop the person, I think is a little overrated. Because maybe they just think the parents are jerks for whatever it is that they think they're doing. But so when I'm being serious, I'm going to be serious now. The idea is to actually see yourself conducting yourself in a way that you can admire and appreciate as you observe yourself. And to me, that's the true essence of self-esteem. Not what someone else said to you, even if you did earn it. I think some of that gets in there, especially early on. If it's earned, if it's bona fide, then I think that does get absorbed and contribute to one's sense of self. But honestly, I think there's nothing like seeing yourself do good and saying, I did good, So, yeah. And I think in these very complicated times we're living in, I think it's really precious to be able to notice that in oneself and others.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Can you take us down memory lane a little bit? Tell us about your upbringing, childhood, family
So
dynamic.
you mean like when I was a mouthy, bad little girl? Yeah.
Sure.
So when I was little, there was a movie called The Bad Seed. So that was a very, very long time ago. So it's a classic. So maybe you heard of it, but I doubt that your audience or you would have heard of it. And I don't even remember anything about it, except I used to think maybe I'm her. It seems like she was like evil or something. And I think they used to call it fresh.
Yeah.
So like when you were mouthing off, you were being
Yep.
fresh. So I was like grounded. We called it punished. We didn't say grounded, but grounded as I remember it, like almost my entire childhood for being fresh. So, you know, the little children's book, Madelaine,
Yep.
she was not afraid. She was not afraid of mice. She loved winter snow and ice. To the tiger in the zoo, Madeleine just said poo poo. And so did I too many times to my father. Poo poo. I didn't use the exact words, but that was, I had attitude. So when I was 15 years old, he died suddenly of a stroke. And I went for years thinking that he died of me because I was fresh. So when I tell you this, you can easily see, I think, why the goodness matters so much because of time spent thinking, oh my God. So, and then there was one day at the cemetery with my mother, and I broke down with her about, I felt like I aggravated him to death. And she said to me, oh, honey, it wasn't you, it was work. So, no surprise, I now help people how to figure things out for themselves so that they can, especially in their work, get to these great lives that everybody wants. And I think we can have. So that's trying to tilt that way. Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a brother,
Younger, older?
older, year and a half older, golden boy.
Golden boy? I don't know what
He,
that means.
he was good. I had a grandmother used to tell me the story of Cain and Abel, and that was the best. But I have a really funny story about, well, and I tell it in corporate settings to women. Listen up, women. So the story goes like this. My mother, who was not a very good cook, used to like to make, thank God, because we like lamb chops. So there'd be this plate of lamb chops. And my recollection is that I sat there watching my brother just eat the lamb chops. And there was none for me. And then honestly, it was only about a year ago, my brother comes out with, you know what the best thing about our childhood was? I loved lamb chops and you didn't. So I got to eat them all. And the reason that I'll tell that, like in corporate settings to women, is like, is that on him or is that on me that I sat there and never said a word? Like, can I have one? Or I like those too. And I just sat there. But it was also so incredible to me that we could remember the experience we shared that differently. Like, he's like, so great. Then you didn't like the lamb chop. Thinking, well, actually, well, I told him that as an adult. That's actually in my book. He read it in the book.
Oh my gosh. Now, how was schooling for you in your upbringing, going to school? Were you a
Well,
good student?
they used to say things like, how could somebody as wonderful as your brother have a sister like you? So that kind of fits in there also. My biggest regret in my life, which I tell my granddaughters, is that I didn't take it all more seriously. I'm really like, I am such a learning junkie now.
Take life
And
more seriously?
no, school, learning. I was on the phone with my boyfriend. And I am so sorry. I think in more recent decade, I've done a not bad job of catching up on the deficits, but like history, I actually flunked honors history and was in the house for the whole summer because I flunked honors. I was grounded for that. Well, so yeah, I'm really sorry I didn't take school more seriously because it's such a joy to learn when you're involved in the learning. And once you're off the track and nothing makes sense, it's deadly. I remember it being deadly. Like I have no idea what anyone was talking about because I didn't do any of the reading or any of that. So, yeah.
I want to transition back a tad. You mentioned you lost your dad unexpectedly at 15, you said?
I was 15 and he was 42.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
I bet. Did life like shift for you afterwards? Did you move?
I got
Like,
married very young,
what's very young?
19. So I was 15 and a half when he died. And it was sort of like nobody knew what to do with me. So, and there was this very nice man who is a very nice man. And he's the father of my daughter. And who we weren't the only ones who got married that young at that time. It seems absurd now, but it wasn't as absurd at the
Oh, I'm sure. My grandma got married when she was 18.
yes. It's so young.
I know.
I don't even think the brain is fully formed then.
I don't think so. So how was life for you, like family life, before you got married and right after your dad passed? Did anything shift for you, your mom, and your brother?
Yeah, rocked their whole world. My brother was going off to college very shortly. I think actually today is the anniversary of my father's death.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You know something? It used to be painful, and now it's like a visit. It's like a really warm visit. So my brother left for college. We sold our house. I moved to a new neighborhood where I didn't know anybody, which most people today would not do that because that's not a good idea to have all that change in the context of massive loss like that.
Were you in the same school still, even though you've moved like that too? Oh God. Sorry.
I don't know why. I don't know why I'm laughing, but it's a little funny. I decided I just wouldn't go
Wouldn't go where?
to school. So the truant officer, you know what that is?
I worked at group homes, so I dealt with them from the kids at the group homes not going to school.
Yeah, well, I don't know what I was even doing. Instead, But anyway, the truant officer wanted to meet with my mother and me. The truant officer comes in. My mother starts sobbing about my father died. The truant officer is comforting my mother. And I remember thinking, hello? What about me? Didn't you come?
Oh my gosh.
I know it's fun.
So did you start going to school again?
Yeah, and I recall the teachers being so nice and so attentive, like staying after school, trying to help me, pay attention. And they were so wonderful. I have like really warm feelings. And somebody must have written me a really good recommendation because I got into a program that was hard to get into. And given my grades were not so hot, I think somebody must have really put in a good word for like, she has potential, let's give her a chance kind of a thing.
So what did you end up going to college for?
So it was a program. I didn't go to college till after that, but it was a University of Pennsylvania's Graduate Hospital School of Medical Technology. It was a 1.5-year program in all the different sciences like chemistry and hematology and serology and all those words. So
Okay. And from there, where'd you go from there with that?
I worked a little bit. I worked in a chemistry lab. And after that, I started going to college. And after that, I went to graduate school a couple times. So I kind of made up for it all. I didn't.
How did you decide when you first went into that program what you were going to study?
I think maybe I went there because I could. Like nobody thought of me as college material. In fact, I didn't even find out that I was like smart until I was already in college. And they put me in an honors program and I had to give a presentation. And when they wrote a reference for me, they said something like, we doubt that she even knows what a brilliant job she has done. I was like, I didn't, because I didn't think of myself like that until, back to my earlier point, I started seeing my output. I started seeing like the papers that I wrote. And then I could see for myself that I was smarter than I looked.
And then after you did this program, did you just know like automatically that you definitely wanted to go to college?
No, what happened was I got married and my husband's advisor said to me, this may not sound good, but this is what he said. He said, you're going to be married to a PhD. You need to get your butt to college. I said, okay. So I did. But I started to love the learning. Because before that,
What makes you think you loved the learning this time?
well, first of all, I got all A's. And I really applied myself. And I was studying things that were interesting to me. I make a big point of this. I have a little granddaughter who just turned 9. And I make a big deal about this with her, about the love of learning. I just found out today the money that I gave her for the holidays, she wants to save it for college. Last time we were all together, I wrote this book and her name is on it because she was my consultant. Then I decided there were like 3 other books I was going to write, and I decided not to write them. So I put everything, all the materials that I had on a little, what do you call it? Zip, the little thing you download onto.
Like a flash drive?
Yeah, thank you. So I put it all on there and I gave it to her with all the little kiddie resource books. The second book was going to be on money, kids and money. And I'm laughing because she said something to my son and son and me. She said something about that she's already started. And my son said to her, "You're like not even 9 years old. What you know about money? Like you're writing a book about." Anyway, which just maybe wasn't nice, but it was very funny. I said, "Oh, good point." But anyway, she's doing her college fund.
That's adorable. Now, I'm curious. Did you always know or always think that you would write a book?
No. Well, I take back what I said that I don't even know what I was doing when I was in the house by myself. I was writing books. So I would take paper and I would like fold it in half and then with a big needle and yarn, sew it up the middle. And then I would make a cover and then I would write a book on the inside. So I was doing that when I was little, but it never occurred to me that I was going to go up and write a real one. It is, in fact, a lot of the things that I've done were not things I thought I would do, which is a major lesson. And I'll tell you what it is. The quieter the mind is, and I teach people how to quiet their minds, the easier it is for us to hear the inner guidance. So people will say, like, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, your purpose is in there. You just can't hear it. So noisy in there. So, I mean, it sounds trite to say, but when you're like, I've been following my bliss, kind of doing what comes naturally, but it comes from inside. It's not anything anyone else says to do.
And quieting your mind has helped you follow your bliss.
Yes. Because I think it's all in there, in all of us. Can't access it because it's like a radio, it's static. It's noisy. So we can't hear the signals. There are all kinds of tips in getting to great. My favorite, because it's so quick, is, did you ever hear of polyvagal breathing?
Yes.
I call it power breathing because it kicks things upstairs. Okay, so this is the hand model of the brain. This is the amygdala. And when we're overstimulated, good or bad, this thing is going berserk and it knocks the higher cortex offline. So you don't even have access to higher order thinking. So when we calm this, it brings this back online. And this can say, something's happening here, I don't know. And the higher order thinking can say, thank you for sharing. I'll take it from here. So the way you achieve this integration is to stimulate the polyvagal nerve. And it takes 30 seconds or less to do that. And in fact, if people go to my website, MadeleineWeiss.com, there's a little tab across the top. There's some tabs, and one of them says Power Breathe. And people can download that. It's a 1-page instruction on how to do this belly breathing. That's basically what it is. A lot of people maybe who've done yoga or Pilates or whatever know a little bit about, or singers know about diaphragmatic breathing. But the idea is that when you breathe, you don't fill your lungs because that just makes us more anxious, right? But you fill your belly like a balloon. And what that does is it stimulates this nerve that goes all the way up from your center all the way to your brain and puts you back together again. So you can function optimally.
So how did you discover this?
Oh, let me think. Well, because I am a learning junkie, I just signed up for 2 last week. I take many continuing education courses, most of them through the Harvard system because they're the ones who send me the brochures and I get to see what's happening. And I'm pretty sure I learned it through them. Stephen Porges is known for this polyvagal breathing.
I love that. So I'm curious at what point you got your MBA in the midst of all of this.
So by this time now, I was the administrative director and treasurer of a large group mental health practice. And one day my co-director came in and she looked at me sitting in a chair that I would practice the psychotherapy in. And she said, "Are you going to be sitting in that same chair for the next 20, 30, 40 years?" And the question horrified. And also, it was when managed care was coming on the healthcare scene. So things were really changing. And there I was managing a business and I didn't know squat about business. I could tell you how that happened. There were 7. So it was this group mental health company owned by someone else. And me and my 7 sisters, we all worked together. And one day they realized they had overextended themselves. So they were going to shut down the office. And meanwhile, we had 200 patients. They couldn't shut down the office. I was 7 months pregnant and building a house. And we get the notice. Well, the notice was we walked in and everything was gone but a typewriter. They just took everything. And so we had this meeting. And they said, we're going to have to divvy this up and figure out what we're going to do. And I said, well, I don't know. My mother was my father's bookkeeper. And they said, okay, good. Then you're the administrative director, treasurer. I said, okay, yeah, but I don't really know what to do, actually. And they said, yeah, just take there was tons of cash. They said, just take all the money, stick it in a brown bag, take it home and figure it out. And, okay. So, of course, I hired an accountant and I hired an office administrator and we figured it out.
Wow.
Yeah. It's all very organic, isn't it? It's just so organic.
That's impressive.
But what I'm noticing in the telling is that not a lot was very well planned. Not a lot of my story. I mean, I love where I wound up, but not a lot of it was like when you asked me, like, I forget how you said it, something about dreaming, like, did I know I was going to write a book? No. I didn't know I was going to do any of the things that I did. None of it. And yet, when you're open and you can find a little courage, because it takes a little courage, lots of things are possible.
That's true. So what does the great in the title of your book stand for?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So the G is the grounding. G stands for grounding. So it's grounding in the idea that basically it doesn't have to be like, and when people come to me to work with me, they don't typically say that they want me to help them figure out how to have a GREAT life. They're usually in some sort of pain, right? And they want something to be different and they don't know how. And I know, because I've done it enough with enough people, I know how possible it is. And also from my own life, I know how possible it is to get from here to there. So I hold that ground for them until they can step into it and believe it and run with it themselves. So it's that grounding in the belief that you can't tell a person, back to the beginning of our talking with each other, they have to see themselves doing something, and then they begin to believe. The R is the first line of the book is great life depends on a great fit between who we are and the environments in which we work and live. So the R is, if a great life depends on the fit with who we are, we have to recognize who we are. And it's not necessarily who anybody told you should be. It's not even necessarily who you always thought you should be. It's something, like we were saying, that springs from in here if we let it. And then the E, GRE, is exploring the environment. So when I was growing up, there were maybe one or two things that a girl could do when she grew up. And there's a great, and I know that's changed, but still there's a great big world out there. And there's a lot of exploring that can take us to places we never dreamed were possible. But that's a little bit la la land, and sometimes people get stuck in the dreaming. And this is the A is for action. So William James said, action doesn't guarantee happiness, but there's no happiness without it. So the A is that we have to get on a path, one foot in front of the other, find a little courage to go outside of the comfort zone, which most people will fight, kicking and screaming. And that's the T, which is tackling the resistance to the change, which is usually pretty significant. People are like very excited at the beginning because there's all this novelty, thinking about, I could do this and I could do that. And there's a lot of buzz with that. But then when you get down to actually stepping forward in concrete ways to places where you may never have been before, it's not always smooth sailing. Sometimes take some fight with yourself.
I love that abbreviation. How did you come up with that?
I don't know, but I was thrilled. I was, one day I said to myself, these people, my clients, are doing so great. And my background is so varied. I even studied Advaita Vedanta pre-Hindu tradition for over 25 years. So between that and psychodynamic psychotherapy, coaching, and all these evolutionary psychology, you name it, because I became a learning junkie. So I was always learning something. So I said to myself, like, what are you even doing? Like, you have like so many tools in the toolkit. And so I laid out all my case folders, looking at them, like, what is common denominator here? What do all these people who are so different from each other, what was the common process for them? And I came up with this 5-step process. And when I realized that I could fit it into the acronym WAIT, I was very happy.
It makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, would you say tackling the resistance to change is the most difficult part for most people?
Yeah. When I was in training, I had a very classical training. They taught us that. They said the resistance is the work. People think it's like the figuring out whether to do this or whether to do that. The deeper work that makes all the difference is the making the unconscious conscious about what makes you tick and what gets in the way.
That's true.
Right? I started to tell you earlier, I had a couple of clients recently, and they were very successful men in business. And at the very beginning, they're enthralled with the work. And they did, like, so one of them stopped drinking, which is a very big deal. And another one was not really connecting with anybody in his family and completely reversed that. The children were like, wow, they really felt like they had a father. But it's so I'm not minimizing any of that, but there's something that's harder than that that comes next. That a lot of people feel like I've been getting away with doing it this way for my whole life. It might not be great. My business might fall apart. The wife might leave eventually. But, this has been working well enough for so long. And when there's no longer kind of pain that brought them in the first place, it's not an easy thing to stick with it. So, so I've had people who will get to a certain point and then they'll stop and there will be a crisis that they hope would never happen, but I kind of knew was coming down the pike. And then they can go to the next level.
Do you think people have to experience a certain level of pain to change?
Well, what do they say? It's either something really positive or something really negative. But when you're sort of coasting along, the brain conserves energy. The brain will do whatever it can do to conserve. It doesn't like to waste any energy. Change requires enormous energy. Though people really have to put their minds to it if they really want to change anything, because it's not easy.
That's completely true.
I've seen people do it, though. I've seen lots of people do it. I have this wonderful woman who, when I first met her, she said she was so independent. She couldn't imagine even ever living with anyone, let alone like getting married. And now she's married and she has 2 babies. And she moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And she went from she started out in defense and went into finance. And she's been adventuring all over the place and having a great life. She, who thought she was going to have her own four walls and nothing else. I remember when she moved in with the boyfriend, she put up a bookcase in the corner, like the dog marking. It worked.
So what helps with change?
But commitment. There was a there was a guy who gave a conference when I was at Harvard, and he made a really good point, I thought, where he said that, and this is on my website, I think. He said that it's not that people don't really want to lose the weight or don't really want to stop drinking or don't really want to start running or stop smoking. It's not that people don't really want to. They do want to. It's just something they want more. And whatever you want more wins. Want more always win. Again, a lot of it isn't conscious, and that's what the work with somebody like me is about, making that conscious so that you can make a conscious decision about which one you want more really for your life forevermore. And if it's not conscious and it's strong, and staying in the comfort zone is a big one. People's discomfort, if it's what they've always known and done, even though it's discomfort, it's really comfortable. And the brain will try to keep you there because it's easier and it spends less energy. So as much as we can make conscious as possible.
Whatever the brain wants more. I've never heard that, but that makes a lot of sense. I have my own weight loss journey. Actually, once I shifted internally, I was able to lose the weight and maintain like a 70-pound weight loss. But I probably before I started that tried losing weight for almost my whole teens. Like I tried losing weight for like 8 years and nothing
What
really.
is it? What is it that flipped the switch for you? How'd you do that?
A big thing was the identity. I shifted how I saw myself. Prior to it, it was just I didn't really care almost. And I don't wanna say that I didn't care about myself because I feel like I did, but not enough to really prioritize.
There was something you wanted more than you wanted to, for the trouble to lose weight.
Yeah, I was just
What was it?
I enjoying life. I was drinking, I was eating whatever. I was in my early 20s. I was going out. I don't wanna say partying per se, because I wasn't a big, like, club type person, but I could eat whatever, eat the fried food, have 3 drinks with the girls, like.
It sounds like freedom. Well, you said that. You could do whatever you want. You were choosing a freer spirit than the discipline of weight control.
Yeah.
And then something happened that made you want to choose the other.
It's funny because it was so random. I had lived in this apartment that I had been living in for a while, but I was on the 3rd floor, and there was one day that I was out of breath going up the stairs, and I had nothing in my hands, and I was like, "I
Mhm.
feel like I just ran a mile. I'm not carrying anything, and I need to sit down just from walking up the 3 flights of stairs."
I understand. Did you have anyone in your life who went in a bad direction with that sort of thing, where there was a bad outcome? Like you didn't want to wind up like that, whatever it was,
Like, weight-wise, you mean?
or illness?
I was in a relationship at the time, and, like, neither one of us were really taking care of ourselves. I don't know that I've, like, witnessed somebody experience illness from it, but it was a small thing.
No,
I
it
ca
was huge. It changed
Yeah,
your life.
it did.
It was an awareness that changed your life. You saw you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I shifted the identity, like, was the biggest thing that helped me make the change.
Before you lost the weight.
Yes.
So nowadays they call that like manifesting. Like you're supposed to, a lot of people swear by it, that you're supposed to begin living. So let's say you weighed an extra 70 pounds. You begin living as if you've already lost it. You're not supposed to be, they say what people get wrong is they think they're supposed to be imagining what it's going to be like, and was sort of dreaming about the day when, and they say, no, 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 no. You're already like, you live like you already lost the weight.
I guess you're right. I guess I did manifest it.
You did?
Isn't that what it seemed like you said?
Well, no, I was using your story to make a point about the myth about manifestation. But if you were saying that you began to live,
I began to think about myself, like even before I started going to the gym, but thinking about myself that like somebody that cares about their body enough to even move it a little bit,
okay, that's
because
great.
prior to that, I wasn't getting up doing much. Like if I didn't have somewhere to go, something to do, if I wasn't needing to walk down the 3 flights of stairs, I wasn't.
Sounds like you had a really good wake up call. Not everyone's that lucky.
I know. That is true.
And you ran with it, which is great.
I have. Now, I'm curious. I love the GREAT acronym. Do you have any other acronyms that
Actually, I do. I teach decision making, and I have an acronym for that, which is FLASH. But in the interest of time, I'm not going to break that down here. But if any of your listeners or if anyone is interested, I offer a complimentary strategy session. So anyone can get in touch with me. And if they want to talk about that or something else, I'll be happy to do that.
awesome. And I will link your website in the show notes for people to connect with you directly. Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
Yes, I have.
I'm a big fan of his stuff. He's got a podcast as well called On Purpose, and he ends it with 2 segments. And I've borrowed those 2 segments, and I end my podcast with those 2 segments. First segment is the many sides to us, and there's 5 questions, and they need to be answered in 1 word each.
Oh, God.
They're not hard. They're easy. You can't get them wrong.
You just took me back to my panic in grade school.
But there's no wrong answer. That's the best part.
Okay. I'll be brave. Go ahead.
What is 1 word someone who was meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Friendly.
What is 1 word someone who knows you extremely well could use to describe you as?
Sincere.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Earnest.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
That is my favorite question so far. Arrogant.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
What is 1 word I'm trying? Trying?
Trying to embody.
I'm not. I'm not trying to embody any.
Then what are you embodying?
Presence.
Second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
When I was working at the medical school, speaking of arrogant, there are lots of really big egos all over the place. And there was one time I was in tears and I went into, actually, it was my boss's office and was just sobbing. And he said to me, just do good work. and we're sort of back to the goodness, the sense that that you're like, so if the what hits the fan, it wasn't because you weren't doing the best that you could do, because you were doing good work. So I share that with clients a lot, and it's kind of like a mantra, just this advice that I got, just do good work. It just, yeah. And it doesn't apply just to work, obviously, from everything else I've been saying. It like do good in your life. And then the chips fall where they may, and we can't control everything, but at least we know that we did our best. I think that's a nice way to be.
Why would you say that's the best advice?
To just do good work? Because people ruminate, overthink, are filled with self-recrimination. And I just had dinner with somebody last night who gave a talk. And after every time she gives a talk, she's wondering if she was any good or not. And I go, oh my God, like still? Like at some point, aren't you like you did your best? So I think it spares us when we do good work, and we're mindful about that. It spares us from all the self-recrimination, which is an incredible waste of life.
What in the
Answer.
worst advice you've heard or received?
Oh, see, folks, she didn't give me these ahead of time. It would have helped. Okay. The worst advice. Oh, I know. Oh my God, I know. This is a whole other can of worms. When maybe like 20 something years ago, believe it or not, I got flesh eating disease. And it was really horrific. And it was a strep infection in my arm. So it was like having strep throat in your arm. It's not a big deal in your throat. You go on antibiotics in your arm. It's a very big deal. But the doctor came in and said, and they had gouged, this is disgusting. I'm sorry. They had gouged out all the tissue, and there was like almost nothing left except the bone. And the doctor said to me, I'll tell you what, why don't we just close that up and we'll send you home and you'll rest a little. And when you're ready, you'll come back and we'll figure out how to make it look better. That was his advice. And my answer was, I am not moving this bed until you figure out how to do something with this arm, because I'm not doing that. It would have been really, truly terrible. And as sick and vulnerable as I was, I did not take that advice. And I am really, really, really glad, because my special arm is doing really great. I call my special.
What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
I was just talking about this with somebody today, so that's why it's coming out. I stopped having a car in 2005. I had a Saab at the time, and it wasn't even off warranty, and I had already burnt out the clutch, and the thing was in the shop all the time. Half the accidents I had, I wasn't even in the car. It was like I left the emergency brake on and it's rolled out into the middle of the street kind of a thing. So I don't value that anymore. People have tried to give me one. Like,
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
well, I wrote my epitaph in business school. Give me a sec. It was this. She helped us to be strong. And because we were strong, we were happy. And for that, we loved her. That's
That's beautiful. If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
Well, there's a lot of talk about freedom of speech, and I'm finding a lot of it is not kind. And I think it's the Buddhists have a guideline, which is speech should be true, kind, necessary, and beneficial. And that if it doesn't meet that test, keep your trap shut. So I think if we could all work on our speech and be kind to each other, it would be a better world. Actually, National February 17th is, I'm going to get this wrong, but close, is something like National Random Acts of Kindness Day or something like that. And I prepared a blog post. So on my website, there's another tab that says blog. So I prepared a blog post on that, and it starts with my experience in the grocery store the other day and all the different ways that people were thinking they were being kind that wasn't so much. And then my own example of myself, which was really funny. And so if anyone is interested in this silliness on a very serious subject, if you join my mailing list, there's a place to do that too. Then when I send this blog out, whoever it is who joined would get that.
So why would kindness be the law you enforce?
You're really peeling the onion here. Well, because look how much pain there is. So people, we could be like feeding the hungry. We could be loving each other. The world would just be a better place. We could be innovating with all the energy we waste being nasty. Everyone's trying to be right. I'm right and good, and you're bad and wrong. And I feel like kindness would serve us all much better. I don't know. Wouldn't it?
No, I agree. I do.
But we're only responsible for our own behavior.
That is true.
My story in the grocery store when I turned it on myself is that I saw a neighbor, and she had a bunch of bananas, and the line was like in Trader Joe's, it was like around and around and around. And I said to her, "Is that all you have?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Give me your bananas." So like I'm being kind, right? I'm taking her bananas. And then she said, "Well, I need some celery." So then she put in celery. And then she put in ground beef. And then her granddaughter likes chocolate pudding. So then she put in chocolate pudding. And it went on and on and on till by the time I got to the register, I had actually enabled her to cut in line in front of everyone else who was standing dutifully and patiently in line. And it was an example of me virtue signaling what a good person I am, helping her out with her bananas. And it turned out that I had violated the code of conduct in the grocery store. But there were so many examples of people thinking they were doing a kind thing who were just violating norms all over the place. And it just kind of made the point of how nuanced it all is.
It's so true. It's so true. Well, I will link your website in the show notes for listeners to click it directly. And I do just like to give it back to the guest. No pressure, but any final words you want to leave listeners with?
Sure. So one of the things that I took away when I was studying Advaita Vedanta for 25 plus years is they have a concept called good company. And good company is not just the people you hang out with, although it is that, but, and this kind of pertains to your story about, the drinking and eating and this and that. So it's the finest quality of everything that you can manage to bring into your life. So it's the books you read, it's the music you listen to, it is the people that you hang out with, the food you eat. And most importantly, this is the most important one, the thoughts in our head, the finest quality that we can manage. So the kindness is not just between us, but I can't stress enough how within us can be, and what a difference that makes.
That's true. I completely agree. Well, thank you so much, Madeline. I really appreciate it.
Me too. It was really fun being with you. And again, if anyone has any questions or comments they want to bring to my attention, bring it on.
Sounds good. And thank you guys for tuning in to an episode of Manders Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.